Hello, everyone, and welcome to the WilliamTopsTV community. I'm your host, and I'm excited to take you on a tour of the 39 strangest tombs in the world. Each of these tombs is unique and has an intriguing story behind it that has captured the imagination of people from all over the world. So get ready to explore together and discover the mysteries behind these incredible tombs. Let's get started. The story behind the Mummy of Rosalia Lombardo is a mixture of tragedy and fascination. Little Rosalia died tragically at the age of 2 from pneumonia in 1920. Her father, grief-stricken by his loss, sought a way to immortalize her memory in a special way and decided to entrust the expert embalmer Alfredo Salafia with the task of mummifying his daughter. Salafia accepted the commission and set to work on Rosalia's mummification, using innovative techniques for the time, such as replacing the blood with formaldehyde and desiccating her skin with a mixture of alcohol and glycerin. In addition, she used salicylic acid to protect her body from fungi. The final result was impressive, and today Rosalia can be seen in a hermetically sealed glass urn in which even nitrogen gas has been introduced to better preserve her. It is hard not to be fascinated by the appearance of Rosalia, who appears to be simply asleep rather than a mummy more than 100 years old. The Victorian era was known for its quirky and eccentric customs, and the protection of the dead was no exception. In that era, it became common to place iron cages over graves in cemeteries, known as mortsafes, to protect the dead from body snatchers. Just as you hear, body snatchers were a real menace at the time, as they sold stolen bodies to local medical institutions for study. Therefore, the mortsafes were not meant to keep the dead inside the graves, but to prevent body snatchers from digging them up. It is hard to imagine how frightening it must have been for relatives of the deceased to see these cages over the graves of their loved ones, but for the Victorians, it was a necessary measure to protect the bodies from ruthless thieves. Fortunately, this practice faded over time, and today it is difficult to find any mortsafe in cemeteries. Taira no Masakado was a samurai who lived in the Heian period and led a rebellion against the central government based in Kyoto. His fight against the state had serious consequences, and in 940 he was beheaded as punishment for his actions. But Masakado's story did not end there. It is said that his head did not decay for 3 months after his death, and that his eyes kept rotating in his skull. Eventually, his head was buried in what is now Tokyo, and he became the hero of a legend. Legend has it that if Masakado's grave is desecrated or moved, a great natural disaster will befall the earth. Perhaps out of caution, superstition, or simply out of respect, Masakado's tomb is the oldest and best preserved tomb in the world. It is located in the Chiyoda district of Tokyo and is a sacred place for many Japanese, who consider him a spiritual protector of the city. Taira no Masakado's story continues to fascinate people around the world, and his tomb is a major tourist attraction for those interested in Japanese culture. In addition, his legacy as a samurai and his fight against the central government remain a symbol of resistance and struggle for justice for many Japanese today. The story behind Lily E. Gray's headstone is quite mysterious. The inscription on her tombstone that reads "Victim of the Beast 666" has perplexed many visitors to the cemetery. But the truth behind this inscription is even stranger. It turns out that Lily's husband, Elmer E. Gray, had an obsession with conspiracy theories and deeply distrusted the U.S. government. After Lily's death, Elmer blamed the government for her demise and refused to accept any financial help they could offer him. Instead, he decided to build the tombstone with the inscription "Victim of the Beast 666" as a form of protest against the government. While it is an intriguing story, the truth behind Lily's death remains unknown. Was she really a victim of the government or simply a victim of circumstance? No one knows for sure, but Lily's tombstone remains an intriguing mystery to those who visit the cemetery. The Chase family crypt is one of the most puzzling mysteries in history. It is a family tomb that was built in 1805 in New Hampshire, United States, and was the final resting place for several members of the Chase family. However, beginning in 1813, the tomb began to show signs of unexplained activity. When the first member of the family was buried there, the grave diggers discovered that all of the caskets had been moved from their original position, although nothing had been stolen. 6 years later, the grave was reopened for the burial of another family member, and again the caskets had been moved, including the heavy lead casket of Thomas Chase. This pattern continued each time the crypt was opened, prompting locals to gather to witness the next event. The governor of Barbados, Lord Combermere, witnessed one of these strange experiences in 1819 and ordered a thorough investigation. White plaster was spread on the floor of the crypt to detect traces of the suspected desecrators, and the walls were investigated for any secret passages. The tomb was sealed with Combermere's personal seal imprinted in the cement surrounding the door. However, less than a year later, when the tomb was reopened, the coffins had been moved again, some even upright, and another found on the stairs leading down from the door. Faced with this strange situation, it was decided that the coffins should be moved and buried elsewhere, abandoning the Chase family crypt, which remains sealed to this day. The strange events in this tomb have puzzled many and have generated all kinds of speculations and hypotheses, but the mystery of who or what could have moved the coffins remains unsolved. Mary Shelley's story is one of the most unique on the list, as it involves an unusual and somewhat macabre display of love. When her husband, the poet Percy Bysshe Shelley, died in a tragic sailing accident in Italy in 1822, Mary and her friends, including poets Lord Byron and Leigh Hunt, cremated the body on the beach. However, it is said that Shelley's heart refused to burn along with the rest of the body and was recovered by Hunt days later. Once back in England, Hunt gave the heart to Mary, who kept it in the top drawer of her desk for nearly 30 years. When Mary died in 1851, the heart was wrapped in an A4-sized sheet containing a manuscript of the poem Adonis, on the death of John Keats, written by Shelley in memory of the poet John Keats. The sheet was placed in Mary's coffin along with the heart of her beloved husband. Although it may seem a strange and somewhat macabre act, this display of love and devotion is consistent with the nature of Mary Shelley, author of the famous novel Frankenstein or Modern Prometheus, which is about creating a creature from human body parts. Before we continue, don't forget to like and subscribe. We also invite you to activate the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. The EuroMash Cemetery in Yekaterinburg, Russia, is known for its graves of mobsters who died in the gang wars that raged in the 1990s. What makes this cemetery even more disturbing is that many of the tombstones have life-size portraits engraved in granite, creating a sort of gallery of mafia suspects. One of these tombs belongs to Alexander Kabarov, leader of one of the gangs of the time, who, in addition to having an imposing portrait, has a CCTV camera that ensures constant surveillance 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all year round. This cemetery is a showcase of Russian mafia culture, where gang leaders and high-profile criminals are honored in death with portraits and other ostentation on their graves. While it is a final resting place for many, it is also a constant reminder of the violence and power the mafia has wielded in Russia. Inz Clark was a little girl who died tragically at the age of 6 when she was struck by lightning in 1880. Her parents, heartbroken by the loss of their daughter, commissioned a life-size sculpture in her memory. The sculpture shows Inez seated on a bench wearing a lace dress, holding a parasol and a flower. The sculpture is pretty common on tombs, right? But what makes it unique is that it is protected in a large plexiglass box. This tomb is even more disturbing when people visiting the cemetery report seeing a little girl dressed in old-fashioned clothes, playing near the tomb. Many believe it is the spirit of Inez, still roaming the cemetery. Understandably, this may be creepy to some, but it is also a touching display of love and care from parents for their deceased daughter. Jay's grave, also known as Kitty J, is a grassy mound on Dartmoor that has puzzled people for many years. It is believed to be the resting place of a woman who committed suicide in the late 18th century. Because the church considered suicide a sin at the time, it denied her burial in holy ground. Instead, the woman was buried at a crossroads so that her spirit would be confused and she could never find her way to the afterlife. Despite the apparent lack of attention to the grave, which is in a fairly remote location, fresh flowers regularly appear on it. No one has claimed to be responsible for these floral tributes, which has generated even more mystery surrounding Kitty J's grave. Ghost hunters have turned the site into a cult site, and there have been numerous paranormal investigations at the site. Despite this, the mystery remains unsolved, and Kitty J's grave remains an intriguing and puzzling place. The story of Princess Elizabeth Demidov is one of the most fascinating in the Père Lachaise Cemetery. This woman from the Russian nobility married the first prince of Saint Donatus in a loveless marriage. However, what made her a legendary figure was her death and the strange challenge she left for those brave enough to attempt it. Princess Elizabeth Demidov died in a tragic and unusual way, almost in a state of insanity. Before she passed away, she left a challenge to anyone brave enough to accept it: spend a full week inside her mausoleum to receive a share of her enormous fortune. Since then, many have attempted to complete the challenge, but none have succeeded. Some have come away in shock. Some have suffered mental illness, and some have died. But Princess Elizabeth Demidov's fortune remains unclaimed. In Plymouth, a place located in Trinidad and Tobago, there is a unique tomb that has aroused speculation and curiosity about the history of its occupant, Betty Stephen. In the epitaph on the tomb, you can read the enigmatic phrase, "A mother without knowing it, and a wife without her husband knowing it." These words have perplexed those who visit the place and have triggered various theories about the life of Betty Stephen. Betty Stevens is believed to have passed away in the year 1783 at the age of 23. The story surrounding her grave suggests that she may have been a slave who suffered a series of tragic experiences throughout her life. According to her speculations, when she was only 12 years old, Betty would have been a victim of rape by her master, which triggered an illness in her. Over the next 11 years, Betty Stevens, reportedly went through several episodes of unconsciousness, during which she was again abused. During these periods of unconsciousness, Betty would have given birth to 4 children, although she herself never knew it. Betty Stevens' story is just a guess, and there is no concrete evidence to support these events. Despite the lack of confirmation, this story fascinates tourists who visit Betty Stevens' grave in Plymouth. The mystery that surrounds her life and the inscriptions of her on her tomb have made her a popular tourist attraction in the area. John Rennie was a Welsh painter who died in 1832. Although his name and occupation might suggest a common life, his tomb has become a fascinating enigma to those who visit it. He has even inspired a song dedicated to his memory. What makes John Rennie's grave so remarkable is an engraving on it, which appears to be covered by coded text. This engraving is divided into 15 rows and 19 columns, each with a letter. To the naked eye, the letters appear to be arranged randomly, which has puzzled researchers and the curious who have tried to decipher their meaning. Despite the apparent randomness of the letters, some words, such as "Here lies John," have been identified among the 46,000 possible combinations. However, no one has been able to fully understand the full message hidden in the engraving. The enigma has led to various theories about its intent and meaning. Some people speculate that the scrambled text could be a way to confuse the devil. In folklore, it is believed that writing enigmatically or reversing the words can prevent evil forces from interpreting or using the message against you. This theory suggests that John Rennie might have wanted to protect his eternal rest by using this encrypted text. Although there have been many efforts to decipher the message, no one has fully unraveled the enigma of John Rennie's grave. However, the mystery of it has attracted numerous visitors and puzzle enthusiasts who enjoy the challenge of trying to decipher the hidden message. Although James Leeson's name may not say much on its own, his grave has become famous due to the enigmas surrounding his tombstone, which involve hidden messages and possible connections to secret societies. James Leeson passed away at the age of 38 in the year 1794. The tombstone marking his resting place is adorned with various figures symbolizing the brevity of life and the importance of immortality. However, what really surprises those who observe it is a kind of coded message that is believed to correspond to a secret Masonic language. This encrypted message has generated great intrigue and has led to attempts to decipher its meaning. To some extent, part of the message, which supposedly reads, "Remember death," has been decoded. However, it is the set of codes, images, and strange drawings present on the tombstone that raises the biggest questions about who James Leeson really was and what message he wanted to convey after his death. The presence of Masonic symbols on James Leeson's tombstone has given rise to speculation about his possible affiliation with a secret society. Freemasonry, with its history and traditions shrouded in mystery, has intrigued people for centuries. Freemasons are believed to use coded language and symbols in their rituals and communications, which has led to the assumption that James Leeson may have been a Freemason and that the encrypted message from him on the tombstone is related to this affiliation. However, to this day, the identity and true intent of James Leeson remain largely unknown. His tombstone and his encrypted message continue to be the subject of debate and speculation by researchers, occult enthusiasts, and those interested in uncovering the secrets of secret societies. The peculiar thing about his grave is its location, which is in the middle of a car park. How is it possible that a grave was left in a random place that is not a cemetery? The story behind the grave of Mary Ellis explains it. In 1790, Mary Ellis moved to New Brunswick, Canada, to spend time with her family. During her stay, she met a Navy officer with whom she fell in love. They both thought of getting married and starting a life together, although before that he had to go back on board. He would be sailing for months, but upon his return they would be married as planned. The officer left Mary Ellis her horse, which was one of her most precious assets. However, time passed, and the officer did not return. The girl used to ride the horse to go to the port of New Brunswick and find out where her lover was. The answer was always the same: nobody knew. As time passed, the officer did not return, but Mary Ellis did not give up. In 1813, she bought a farm very close to the port so that she could receive him when she returned. The farm was located along the Raritan River, which was navigable and a possible inlet for the officer's boat. Unfortunately, her Mary Ellis died a few years later without ever seeing the officer she was to marry arrive. Her family buried her near the river where she had waited so long. Over the years, the area evolved and many things were built, but Mary Ellis's grave was never touched or moved. Today, it still exists and is protected by a simple fence. It is located in the middle of a car park in a shopping center and has become a place of visit for tourists and travelers. Can you imagine a tomb with stairs and a window? Well, it exists, and it is in the city of Natchez, Mississippi. It is the grave of a little girl named Florence Irene Ford, who died of yellow fever in 1871. The girl was always very afraid of storms, and her mother calmed her down to ease her fears. After her death, her mother made special arrangements for her daughter's grave. The mother requested that instead of covering the grave with earth, stairs be built that descend to the girl's coffin. The coffin would be placed in an upright position and a window would be placed in the part where the girl's face was located. In this way, when descending the stairs, the mother would meet the face of her daughter through a mirror. The reason for this unusual grave was that the mother wanted access to her daughter during storms. Although the girl was deceased, the mother thought that her spirit would be afraid of thunder and lightning, and she could calm her down like she used to when she was alive. The tomb was equipped with a closable metal lid so that the mother could be at the bottom of the stairs reading or singing to her daughter until the storm passed. Today, the grave of Florence Irene Ford can be visited. However, for obvious reasons, the window facing the girl's face has been boarded up. At the bottom of the stairs, you can find all kinds of offerings that people leave in honor of the girl who passed away many years ago. In this case, we have to talk more about a cemetery than a particular grave. This is a Buddhist site where the cemetery is not really intended to house the dead, but a place for the spirits to wait. The Okono Cemetery acts as a bridge between life and death according to Buddhists. In fact, many call this site the Okono Bridge. The people who die and are brought to the Okono graveyard wait for the spirit world to open up. It is located in Japan and is located in an ancient forest that is over 1,000 years old. Most of the bodies in this cemetery are ashes in their corresponding container. Everything is made of wood and stone, and it is undoubtedly a site that leaves no one indifferent when it is visited. Before continuing, don't forget to leave your like and subscribe. We also invite you to activate the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. In 1844, a young man named William Jeffri was elected a senator from the state of North Carolina. He had a promising political future, as he was intelligent and had all the necessary qualities to make a name for himself in the nation. However, he fell ill with intense fevers of unknown origin, which gradually worsened. His last few weeks were of high fever and hallucinations, during which he developed a deep fear of being buried and eaten by worms. He believed that being underground, he would be prey to all the insects that lived there. Due to this, and seeing that his death was imminent, his last wish was that his body be buried in a solid rock. At first, people did not take this request very seriously, as William was young and might yet recover. However, as his condition worsened, they began to assume that he would not survive his illness. Finally, it was his father who began to prepare a stone tomb for his son. The construction of the tomb was complicated and faced many problems. The rock was fractured several times, and the tombstone that covered it was also broken. Today, the grave of William Jeffri can be visited, and it is completely unlike any other known. It is fractured in several places, but still retains its original shape from when it was built at that time. In Russia, there is a town that can be considered a great grave in itself. It is called the City of the Dead and is located in the Caucasus Mountains. Its real name is Dargovs, and it has thousands of graves as its only inhabitants. It is believed that during one of the great pandemics of the 13th century, many people flocked to this town to await death. There are also other theories about this disturbing population in the mountains. Some maintain that it was a settlement built by Sarmatian nomads. In addition, it is thought that it could be a cemetery erected during the Mongol invasion, where the City of the Dead was erected as a large crypt in honor of the deceased. Regardless of its origin, the City of the Dead can be visited by any traveler who wishes. However, the journey is not easy, since there are no buses or trains that take you to this remote place on the roller coasters. However, there are ways to get there if you really want to have a different experience in a city turned into a tomb. Of course, there are many haunting stories about ghosts and spirits that supposedly inhabit Dargovs. The Père Lachaise Cemetery in Paris is world-renowned for its beautiful mausoleums and tombstones, but few are as striking as that of Georges Rodenbach, a prominent 19th-century Belgian writer. In this place rests his body, but his grave goes beyond the conventional. From his imposing tomb, a bronze statue of Rodenbach can be seen emerging from his grave, holding a single rose in his hand. This sculpture, of great visual impact, encapsulates the essence of the work and the personality of the writer. Rodenbach's grave is dramatic and romantic, reflecting the recurring style and theme of his writing. His best-known work, a symbolic novel titled Bruges, La Morte, tells the harrowing story of a widower residing in the city of Bruges, struggling to cope with the grief after the death of his beloved wife. The choice of a single rose in the hand of the statue symbolizes the deep and eternal love that endures even beyond death. This evocative and poetic image on Rodenbach's grave invites visitors to reflect on the universal themes he explored in his literary works, such as love, mourning, and the transcendence of the human spirit. The story of this peculiar tombstone begins with Herman Liss, a man who was hopelessly captivated by a sculptor's muse while in Europe. This muse was an Italian model of extraordinary beauty. Herman fell head over heels in love with her, and in an act of undying love, commissioned a memorial statue of her in her honor. Although Herman proposed to her, the Italian model rejected her offer. However, this did not lessen Herman's love and admiration for her. He decided to send the statue to St. Louis and kept it in his home as a symbol of his everlasting love. Over time, Herman decided that the statue deserved a special and meaningful place. So he decided to mark the family plot in Bellefontaine Cemetery as the new home for his beloved sculpture. But he was not satisfied with just placing it on the ground. To protect it from the elements and preserve its beauty, Herman added a glass box that would enclose it. In 1921, at the age of 50, Herman Liss passed away and was buried at the foot of the statue, fulfilling his wish to be close to his beloved even in eternity. Since then, the tombstone has become a point of interest for visitors to Bellefontaine Cemetery, who are fascinated by the love story it depicts and the statue's unique and enigmatic beauty. Located in Louisville, Kentucky is a unique and moving monument called Sammy Swings. This monument is the ultimate sculptural expression of Buddy Christ and represents the joyous vision of the afterlife that was believed to await Samantha Ann McDonald. Samantha, a 3-year-old girl, tragically passed away in 2006 while riding her trike in the family pool. The monument was created by Maine sculptor Tom White and was intended to reflect the spiritual faith of the McDonald family. At Samantha's resting place stands a life-size bronze statue depicting the upper half of Jesus laughing and bowing down from heaven, known as Sam's Rock. Jesus holds the ropes of a swing that Samantha is on, who is smiling in her bare feet. This symbolism represents the family's belief that Samantha is enjoying a happy and fun life after her departure. The monument also includes additional items that add a meaningful and personal touch. The words of Samantha's favorite song, Jesus Loves Me, are engraved on the memorial, recalling her love for music and her spiritual connection. In addition, Samantha's, her brother's, and her sister's handprints are engraved, along with her signature, which includes a smiley face drawn in the middle of the letter A. These details make the monument even more special and full of love. James Joyce was a prominent Irish writer, considered one of the most influential of the 20th century. His masterpiece, Ulysses, is widely valued and studied. Born in Dublin, Joyce spent much of his life outside of Ireland, but his work is deeply rooted in the Irish capital and its complex relationship with the Catholic Church, which played an important role in Irish life. Joyce first left Dublin to study medicine in Paris, but due to financial difficulties, she was unable to complete her studies. After his mother's death, he left his hometown again and moved to Zurich and then to Trieste. During World War I, he returned to Zurich, where he experienced a period of great artistic creativity. During World War II, he took refuge in Zurich with his family, escaping from the Nazi occupation in Paris. There he died on January 11, 1941, after an ulcer operation. It is for this reason that his grave is located in the Ront Cemetery, near the Zurich Zoo. The Irish government did not allow his remains to be taken back to Ireland, so both his wife, who died a decade later, and his son Giorgio, who died in 1976, also rest there. In the Cave Hill Cemetery in Louisville, Kentucky, there is a striking bronze statue of Sandra Curry Twist. It was created by famed Kentucky sculptor Barney Bright and manufactured by the Ream Gerlach Monument Company of Louisville. The statue shows Sandra in a long dress, standing in front of a semicircle-shaped colonnade of white marble. On the white marble base, there is an inscription that reads, "God always seems to pick his most beautiful flower." In front of the statue is a granite book containing a moving tribute to Sandra. Sandy was born prematurely in Louisville, and although the doctors thought she would not survive, her mother lovingly cared for her and saved her from it. Throughout her life, Sandra was a beautiful young woman with grace and success as a fashion model. She married at the age of 21 and enjoyed a happy and dedicated life with her husband. Tragically, Sandra passed away in a car accident when she was in her prime. She had achieved financial success through smart investments and felt blessed with 3 healthy, beautiful daughters. She was known for her inner beauty, generosity, and love for others. Count Leo Tolstoy was one of the most important writers in history and an admired figure in Russia and throughout the world. Although he was famous, Tolstoy decided to have a simple and humble grave that would reflect his love of nature and a simple life. Instead of having a lavish grave or striking monument, Tolstoy rests at Yasnaya Polyana, his family's former home, on a small rectangle of grass, sometimes covered with snow or autumn leaves. Despite the insistence of his wife, Tolstoy did not want any inscription on his grave. He said that a rich man could build a big monument for himself and spend a lot of money, but no one would come to visit him. Instead, a just man needs nothing to mark his resting place, and if he deserves it, people will visit him from the heart. Tolstoy has been a spiritual guide to millions of people, including illustrious figures like Gandhi. Visitors to his tomb in Yasnaya Polyana often feel a special sensation, a spiritual experience, in this secluded place surrounded by 100-year-old trees. Although there are other very beautiful tombs with striking sculptures and epitaphs, Tolstoy's tomb is undoubtedly special and modestly blends with nature, creating an atmosphere of incomparable peace and serenity. The widow and children of a British citizen named Steve Marsh, who died at the age of 51, decided to honor his memory in a unique way. In a London cemetery, a tombstone in the shape of a replica of a BMW M3 convertible, which was her great passion, was placed on her grave. The tombstone, made of stone and weighing about 1 ton, was designed by a Chinese builder. It includes custom details, such as the license plate of the BMW that bears Steve's name, Steve 1. The granite sculpture faithfully recreates every aspect of the original car, with BMW badging at the front and rear, silver-painted headlights, exhaust pipes, and sports car dash details. The tombstone, which cost around €70,000, was a way to highlight Steve's memory, his passion for cars, and his sense of humor. However, this originality has not been well received by other people who have loved ones buried in the same cemetery. Upon discovering the tombstone of the BMW M3 convertible, some of them expressed their disapproval by placing a parking ticket on the windshield of the symbolic car. In 1970, Harry Leon Collins made an unusual career move, going from Frito-Lay's sales manager to becoming the company's full-time corporate wizard. Under the name Mr. Magic, he became very popular in Louisville and traveled the country performing magic tricks and pulling coins out of children's ears. When Harry passed away suddenly in 1985, his widow, who had also been his stage assistant, decided to commission local sculptor Barney Bright to create a life-size bronze statue of Harry for his grave. Barney sculpted Harry wearing his wizard tuxedo, probably filled with collapsible bird cages and silk scarves, with a smile on his face and gesturing as if he were greeting an imaginary audience. Behind Harry, partially hidden under the wizard's cloak, is a wheeled accessory box for his magic tricks. Harry's bronze feet are surrounded by coins tossed by grateful visitors. Before continuing, don't forget to leave your like and subscribe. We also invite you to activate the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. In the Ront Cemetery in the Netherlands, there is a very peculiar grave that attracts the attention of visitors. Separated by a wall, there are 2 tombstones that are joined by a sculpture of 2 clasped hands. This is the grave of a couple who died in the 19th century, Jacob Werner Constantine van Gorkum and Josephina van Everden. On November 3, 1842, Jacob, who was a Protestant and a cavalry colonel, married Josephina, who was a Catholic. When Jacob died in 1880, he was buried in the Protestant part of the Ront Cemetery, near the wall that separates the Catholic from the Protestant part. This meant that Josephina could not be buried next to her husband. However, she had an ingenious idea that still moves people today and shows that love has no barriers. Before her own death in 1888, Josephina ensured that her grave was placed just on the other side of the wall that separated them. In addition, she made sure they built tombstones tall enough to overhang the wall and a sculpture of clasped hands connecting them in honor of the everlasting union that would exist between her and her beloved. The Central Cemetery of Bogotá, in Colombia, houses numerous famous tombs, and among them, the one of the Hermanitas Bodmer stands out. This burial has acquired a special reputation over the years, even considering it as miraculous. The little Bodmer sisters were three sisters who tragically and prematurely passed away in the 20th century. The exact cause of his death has been the subject of various versions and speculation. Some speak of a contagious and devastating disease, while others mention drowning or even death in fires. Although the exact truth has been lost to time, the little sisters are believed to have died in succession due to serious illness. The tomb of the little Bodmer sisters has become a place of pilgrimage for those who seek their intercession in difficult situations. Various miracles and favors granted to those who have prayed or left offerings at the grave are attributed to him. Many believers come to this place hoping to get cures for illnesses, blessings to conceive children, or solutions to everyday problems. The sculpture that adorns the tomb represents two of the sisters, Victoria and Elvira. In it, Victoria appears kneeling in an act of prayer, while her younger sister, Elvira, surrounds her with her arm and points to heaven. This moving image evokes the sadness and hope that surround these girls' story. The story of the Angel's Girl in Orizaba, Veracruz, is a legend that has lasted throughout time in the Juan de la Luz Enriquez Cemetery. The story goes that little Ana Maria, just 2 years and 3 months old, lost her life in a tragic accident in 1908. While she was playing near a candle, her dress caught fire and she suffered serious burns that were fatal. Ana Maria's parents, heartbroken by her, decided to bury her in the local cemetery and commissioned a talented Italian sculptor, Rinaldo Quanelli, to create a monument in Carrara marble representing the girl. The sculpture shows Ana Maria lying on her bed, protected by an angel holding a rose in one hand and with her wings covering the little girl. The precision and detail with which the sculptor worked is amazing. From the folds in the sheets and clothing, to the girl's hair and features, everything appears identical to how it did before the accident. It is said that the eyes of the sculpture follow the people who walk near it. The angel, throughout more than 100 years, has fulfilled his role as protector of the girl, protecting her from sunlight, rain, and other climatic changes. Her wings seem to move to protect Ana Maria's face from heat or rain. Despite being more than a century old, the tomb of the Angel's Girl remains in perfect condition, as if time had not passed. Visitors are surprised to see that there are always fresh flowers, sweets, and toys at her grave, even though no immediate family is known to keep it that way. It is a mystery how it is preserved and receives flowers daily. The Kiss of Death is a disturbing sculpture that is in the Poblenou Cemetery in Barcelona. It was created in the 20th century to honor the tomb of a man named Josep Laudet Soler. The statue, made of marble, shows a winged skeleton gently kissing a dying man on the cheek. This sculpture is an example of the modern art known as memento mori, which means remember that you will die. This type of art seeks to remind us that we are all going to die and focuses on the idea of the immortality of the soul and the afterlife, rather than the fear of death. The Kiss of Death fits perfectly into this idea. Despite its somber appearance, the sculpture conveys a sense of peace and acceptance in the face of inevitable departure. The statue was created in 1930 and has a verse by the famous Catalan poet Jacinto Verdaguer. Soler likely passed away at a young age, prompting his family to commission this moving sculpture as a way to find solace in the idea that he accepted his death in peace. For nearly 100 years, the sculpture has drawn visitors for its emotional depiction and striking beauty. The Kiss of Death is a masterpiece of sculpture attributed to John Barba or Joan Fontburnett. The combination of the bones of the skeleton with the human body creates an interesting mix of textures and represents the cycle of human life. In the very heart of Liverpool, just a few streets away from the bustling shopping center, stands a majestic 4-meter-high pyramid. No, it is not the funerary monument of some ancient Egyptian dignitary, but rather the peculiar legacy of a Victorian resident of Liverpool, known for his passion for gambling. This pyramid, the subject of numerous local legends, holds with it the mysterious history of its occupant. Before leaving this world, William Mackenzie left precise instructions for his final resting place to be unique. He wished to be buried at a card table with a victorious hand at gambling. Even more intriguingly, some hold the belief that Mackenzie was not buried at all, but that his body was placed upright in the ground in order to prevent Satan from taking possession of his soul. However, the reality is far from these fascinating legends. The tomb that houses Mackenzie, as well as his first and second wives, is simply a conventional underground burial. Despite this, the idea of the deceased leaning over a poker table inside a pyramid continues to capture the public's imagination, adding a touch of mystery and charm to the story. The Raja Monument is one of the most impressive and visited structures in Arnos Vale, attracting devotees from all over the world who wish to pay homage to a man considered one of the fathers of modern India. Raja Ram Mohan Roy, an influential Indian social reformer, left an enduring legacy in areas such as politics, education, religious and social reforms. His courageous fight against unjust practices such as child marriage and sati, where widows were forced to throw themselves on their husbands' funeral pyres, made him a revered figure both in his country and around the world. His sudden death in 1933 while visiting Bristol left a void in the reform movement. However, her influence endured beyond her lifetime, inspiring others to follow in her footsteps in the struggle for justice and equality. Several years after his passing, another distinguished reformer, Dwar Kenneth Tagore, commissioned the construction of the imposing monument in his honor. This majestic structure serves not only as a tangible tribute to his legacy, but also as a sacred place of pilgrimage, where devotees come to remember and celebrate the life and work of this great man. Cemeteries are home to a wide variety of sculptures, from angels to mourning figures, but Lord Clinton's monumental memorial stands out among the typical sculpted headstones. Lord Clinton, a distinguished politician, lieutenant colonel and fiancé of both Queen Victoria and King Edward VII, left an impressive legacy in history. Although tombs of such prominent figures are common in large urban cemeteries, the monument dedicated to him is a true masterpiece. The protected sculpture depicts a deceased woman resting peacefully and wrapped in a cloth, while a kneeling man mourns her departure. But most impressive is the imposing angel towering above them, her arms and wings outstretched in a gesture of protection and comfort. This work of art is a palpable expression of emotions, from the pain reflected in the man's face to the serene and elegant presence of the angel. Every detail of this bronze sculpture captures a frozen moment of deep sorrow and hope, conveying a sense of eternity in the midst of human grief. Karl Marx's tomb is notorious for its sobriety and magnitude, a stark contrast to Victorian monuments adorned with inscriptions, brooding angels, and mournful urns. Instead of following this tradition, Marx's followers opted for a more direct approach: a monumental head. Marx, recognized as the author of the Communist Manifesto, was born in Germany, but found his final resting place in London in 1883. Throughout his life, Marx faced outrage and exile due to his inflammatory political writings, spending decades in the British capital where he raised his children and became involved in socialist and labor movements. After succumbing to pleurisy, Marx was buried in Highgate in a modest ceremony, with very few mourners in attendance. 70 years later, the Marx Memorial Committee proposed the exhumation and reburial of the Marx family in a new location, which led to the construction of the imposing memorial that dominates Highgate today. When it comes to majestic tomb decorations, few things can rival the impressive presence of a life-size marble lion. Frank Bostock, a true Victorian adventurer in the style of Frank Cuesta, captivated the masses with his fascinating exhibits on African and Asian wildlife. However, Bostock's life was much more than just a narrative of exotic travels. This intrepid man was a true artist of the Victorian era, touring the world with his menagerie of animals and gaining fame as a lion tamer. In fact, Bostock is credited with pioneering the use of a saddle as a dressage tool in his performances, marking a milestone in the history of this art. Despite facing dangerous encounters with lions and tigers, Bostock did not meet his end at the hands of either of these powerful felines, but succumbed to the clutches of a much more insidious enemy, influenza. Although his life was marked by danger and adventure, his legacy lives on in the memory of those who admired him for his bravery and passion for the animal world. Before we continue, don't forget to like and subscribe. We also invite you to activate the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. In the wild corners of a forest near Hamelin, Germany, was discovered Peter, a feral boy who had spent a long time living in solitude among the foliage, moving on all fours and subsisting on wild plants as his only sustenance. It is believed that Peter suffered from Pitt-Hopkins syndrome, which quickly made him a curiosity to the court and to those who heard of his story. It was during a hunting party led by George I that Peter was found and brought back to the UK, where he became something of a flamboyant human pet, the object of attention and care by various court workers. Settled on a farm in Hertfordshire, Peter spent the rest of his days under the care of the various residents who lived there. Despite receiving an annuity for his livelihood, Peter was never able to communicate or fully integrate into his surroundings due to his severe physical and developmental limitations. His life at the court was marked by daily challenges, from convincing him to wear a suit to persuading him to sleep in a bed rather than in a corner of his room. In an attempt to keep him safe, after his escape in 1751, he was fitted with a leather collar with his name on it to identify him should he stray too far from the farm. Peter eventually found rest in the grounds of St. Mary's Church, where he was buried with a modest headstone. Gladys Spencer, an outstanding music and dance teacher, as well as a generous charity worker and talented music hall artist, left this world at the young age of 34. As a teacher at the Manor Park Classical Academy of Music and Dance, Gladys devoted much of her life to working with young talent, sharing her passion for music and dance. In addition to her skills as an educator, she was a pianist of recognized talent, whose artistry and dedication left a lasting mark on the community. Although details of her life are scarce, the monument depicting her is a poignant image of her devotion to her art. The scene of Gladys sleeping next to her beloved grand piano is a visual testament to her deep love and commitment to music. The inscription accompanying her image adds a touch of poignancy, remembering Gladys as "my dear Gladys," and with the phrase, "the gardener has plucked an even rarer flower," conveying the idea that her untimely departure left an irreplaceable void in the lives of those who knew and loved her. Although her time in this world was brief, Gladys' legacy lives on through her music and the impact she left on those who had the privilege of knowing her. Corpse tombs are a unique style of burial that can be found embedded in the walls of many old cathedrals and estates. They are unusual and often puzzling ancient monuments that offer a fascinating glimpse into the burial customs of bygone eras. Although other parts of Europe have a rich tradition of macabre sepulchral effigies, Britain has lost many of its most striking monuments due to Reformation and Civil War. Despite this, we can still find some ecclesiastical oddities that survive to this day. Corpse tombs, also known as transi, are a vivid testimony to the history of memento mori, reminding us of the inevitability of death. These funerary monuments take this reminder to a shocking level, displaying a life-size portrait of the deceased, dressed in the appropriate trappings of his or her social position. What is most striking is what lies beneath this representation: the corpse of the deceased, sculpted in stone and depicted in different stages of decomposition. It is important to keep in mind that these monumental tombs were only available to people of high rank and wealth, making them a symbol of status and power in the society of the time. Grave stories are not always about solemnity and fond remembrance. Sometimes they arise from suspicion and superstition, as in the case of the infamous witch of Woodplumpton. Known as Meg Shelton, this 17th-century woman gained notoriety in her locality for her alleged witchcraft practices and mysterious pranks. According to legend, she was attributed with livestock diseases, crop failures, and even the ability to transform into animals, earning her the nickname the Filed Witch. Meg's death was as enigmatic as her life. She was said to have been smashed against a wall by a barrel. Was she really a witch, or perhaps simply a misunderstood woman or even a threat to the community? The reasons behind accusations of witchcraft in the 16th and 17th centuries were diverse and tragic, and Meg's case was no exception. However, the legends surrounding her life become even more intriguing in death. Despite her reputation, Meg was buried in consecrated ground, unusual for someone considered a witch. But most unusual was the way she was buried, face down, in what is known as a deviated burial. Legend has it that even after her burial, Meg seemed to disturb the peace of the village, emerging from her grave on several occasions. To prevent further disturbance, the villagers reburied her, this time with her head forward and a large rock over her grave. Since then, the restless presence of the supposed witch has not been seen again.